Maddie from Hello Interloper here. Today I'm going to be just having a question and answer session because I've been putting it off the past few current events episodes I've been doing, and I guess I'll just do them all in one sitting because I got quite a few piling up. So I'll start with a question by Wex52. He says, "My girlfriend and I play Rage of Bahamut as our main game, but she started on Blood Brothers and I dutifully followed. One thing that stumped me is the leveling of skills. I've maxed out the skill of every guy that I'm using, and pretty easily. So what do I do with all these familiars I'm amassing? Am I doing something wrong that I've got more money and familiars that I know what to do with?" The answer is, don't worry, you're doing absolutely nothing wrong. Skilling up most of your familiars is very easy, and you're not going to really need that many familiars to do that. And as for money, coins, gold, whatever you call it in Blood Brothers, you will have more than you'll ever know what to do with. Unfortunately, they haven't added any use for it, and anything that you can use money for, it's so minimal and you get so much just from going through the maps that it really doesn't matter. You might want to save uncommons and normals to scale up any new familiars you get, because eventually you will be replacing your current familiars with something better, unless of course you spend a lot of money and have the current top-notch familiars. But another thing that you can do is, if you were just being absolutely overloaded by familiars, find a rare that you're going to sell on the bazaar and use your uncommons and normals to skill that guy up, because getting the skill level up will usually raise the price of it on the bazaar by maybe about a Gjallarhorn, because not everybody wants to skill it up. Of course, leveling it too will also make its worth go up, and you can sell it for more on the bazaar. That's usually what I do when I have all these uncommons and normals and have absolutely nobody to skill up. I just raise the skill of something I'm going to sell the next day. So, Ivan92 asks a Blood Brothers question. "I'm rather new to Blood Brothers, but have gotten to level 130 fairly fast. I chose the Red Samurai as my warlord, and I'm unsure to either go with attack or agility skills since he's good at both. Any recommendations what to pick and what skills to use? Also, I noticed in one of your first videos you made explaining the different warlords you missed out on the Red Samurai. Your videos are a lot of help, so thanks." First of all, you're very welcome. And I do realize that the first video I made was a little bit not exactly as informative as I would have liked. I was fairly new to Blood Brothers myself, maybe played for, I guess, about a month, and that was also, I believe, right when they altered the original skills. There was no add skill or anything, so I probably didn't go into all the warlords and didn't exactly put the correct worth of each warlord into play. Now let's quickly bring up the Red Samurai. The Red Samurai here has high attack and agi, but he does have more attack than agility, and his beginning ability is Brawl. And I have been reading a few things here, seeing what other people have used as far as skills go, and it's been generally recommended to use a mix of both. This guy over here, he uses Ice Fist, Grace of Winds 2, and Shadow Volley, seeing that Ice Fist does an immense amount of damage. It's DeNA's ability, although unfortunately DeNA's pretty hard to get. Shadow Volley is fairly easy to get, thankfully. I believe it is... where is he? Tamitomo that gives Shadow Volley, and it attacks the guys in the back. So it's kind of good for taking out usually wisdom-based guys, because those are mostly the guys that people put in the back of their group. So that might be worth getting. It's been discussed a lot whether Grace of Winds 2 or Strength of Blades is the good buff ability to use. Some people say that Grace of Winds 2 has actually boosted their win streak better, while other people prefer the bigger attack. Of course, Ice Fist is popular, Venom Storm is very popular. Some people have said that Shadow Volley has helped them a lot, but as far as a defensive skill, some people have done Shield and Dagger, even though he does have a pretty low defense. not exactly super low, but definitely not as strong as his attack and agility. So it might be worth putting a defensive attack, but if you are going to be doing a lot of events, usually it's recommended that you have some kind of attack that can attack, multiple guys, not like, let's say, if you're going to teach him Slashing Blade, for instance, something that attacks everybody in a line, and you're going to be doing a lot of raid boss event sort of things, you probably want to also give him an attack ability, like, let's say, let's just use Brawl, for instance. It can attack guys in a line if it needs to, but it can also attack one guy, so it would attack 3 times to the boss rather than Slashing Blade, which will attack the boss once. If you know what I mean. It won't wipe out everyone in a line, but it'll attack a few things. Sorry, I'm a little bit confusing right now. But you know what I mean. But a good place to check, of course, is the Blood Brothers wiki. There's a lot of discussion on what kind of skills that they have. Berserk, for instance, is a good one, much better than Brawl if you want to get rid of Brawl completely. Strength of Blades, Shadow Volley, a lot of people are saying Strength of Blade, Slashing Blade, Venom Storm, so Venom Storm is their ability that will actually be useful in a raid boss event, while Slashing Blade is always useful in PvP, not so much in raid boss, etc. So, those are just some recommendations. There's currently no consensus of whether Strength of Blades or Grace of Winds is better, but it seems to benefit both people. I guess it really depends on what the rest of your familiars are. So if the rest of your familiars are Agi based, maybe Grace of Winds, Strength of Blades for attack guys, whatever you really feel like doing. Okay, so Darkwolf0152 asks, for Rage of Bahamut, what was your worst card pack pull? And that is without a doubt the, I believe it's the high normal, definitely. I think it's just called the fairy. I don't know. It's some kind of fairy. I don't really remember off the top of my head what the name is, but that was definitely my worst card pull. Blood Brothers. I have a question from an anonymous person saying, how do you make a cheap defense team? Well, of course, having a full defensive team is pretty interesting, but it definitely has been done before, and it can be effective. One thing that you really need to be aware of is the difference between Shield and Dagger and Cloak and Dagger. They are 2 very similar abilities. Their modifiers exactly the same, 100% attack. They are both reactionary defensive abilities, such as, if you're attacked, you will suddenly use that ability to counter. But the difference is, Cloak and Dagger does it for adjacent allies, while Shield and Dagger does it for any ally in your line. So, the only guy that currently has Shield and Dagger and isn't kind of useless, I'm sorry, Godfinger is pretty useless as far as familiars go, because he only is a 1-star epic that can't be evolved, and his stats aren't really that great. But either way, Bunga, he is a good candidate. He can have a very high stat amount, with a very high defense. His attack is okay, but generally speaking, he's a good defensive character to have. And the nice thing about him, of course, is you can get it for fairly cheap if he's not a perfect evolution. You can get him for, a few Gjallarhorns, which isn't that much if you really think about it. If you sell off a few rares and maybe trade them up a few times, you can easily afford Bunga the Stalwart 2 straight off the bat. And Cloak and Dagger, there are also some very cheap guys here, such as, I believe it's Vledick, not Vledick, because that'd be kind of an awkward pronunciation. But he's fairly cheap. He was an event familiar, but he's got a very, very high defense, if not anything else. And he does have Cloak and Dagger, so it's an adjacent familiar thing. But he's pretty cheap. You can get a raw 1-star for, I think, about 3 Gjallarhorns, 2 if you're lucky. So if you want to build him up yourself, it's still pretty cheap. Then, of course, Elven High Guardian is probably the cheapest one you can find. You can find this guy for one Gjallarhorn fully evolved easily. Um, his stats aren't that great. Even Perfect Evolution, he's pretty low in stats, but he's extremely cheap. Then, of course, there's Warrior Cyclops. He's definitely the more expensive version of a Cloak and Dagger guy. If I actually see his full evolution here, you can see his stats go pretty high, with his HP being 16.3k. Very crazy. But of course, with those great stats come a pretty pricey price tag, so this doesn't exactly apply to a cheap defense team. Now, if I go over here, don't know if you participated in the invite or sharing thing. They actually have changed it to an invite thing. Before, you just had to share it on Facebook or Twitter and you'd get this guy. But if you have him, he's okay. He's not that great. He's kind of like in Elven Guardian, but a little bit better. And what else? Yeah, that's about it until you start going into the higher stuff here, like Schlock the Frost Wolf, which is kind of out of range. It's retired and very expensive. So anyway, that's how you make a cheap defense team. So now I have a question from Yoshi Girl X asking, now that warlords have 3 skills, do you think it is overpowered for some warlords? I've experienced PvP when the warlord Grey Mage does 30k to 50k damage per hit after being buffed by the other 4 in the line and also itself. It was scary, and I was wondering if it's possible for the other warlords to do the same thing with their attacks. Well, I totally know what you mean. Even just today, I was fighting the Purple Knife, and it used Torrent of Flame. I'm not sure which buffs it used, but either way, my entire team was wiped out by 15k damage each. It was extremely scary, and I did think it was very overpowered. Unfortunately, some people do have very overpowered teams, and those teams could be a little bit useless if those skills don't go off, but if they do, it is absolutely deadly. As for whether this is possible with Aegean attack, I'm sure it definitely is. I actually have seen at one point a team like this, which did a massive amount of damage just from Cloak and Dagger, and it was very scary. It was the White Knight with a DeNA, a Griffin, and question mark, because I really don't remember what it was. But the Griffin buffed the attack of these guys, and then the White Knight also had Strength of Blades and buffed all these guys. So then I happened to attack the White Knight, and it hit me back for 20k. This happened twice and completely decimated most of my team once the Griffin attacked and DeNA attacked with normal attack. So you can make a pretty deadly team with Agi attack-based guys. You just kind of have to play around with the configuration to really find out how to do that crazy amount of damage, but it is totally doable. Now I have a question from SoRuthless99. I have a giant ape warlord. Which 3 skills should I give it? I'm thinking about Cloak and Dagger to get him more attack chances. Cloak and Dagger is definitely a good choice, but as I was saying before, it might be worth looking into a Bunga Stalwart to give it Shield and Dagger, because Shield and Dagger applies for any ally, which means that it'll be even more attack chances than Cloak and Dagger. Of course, this might be a little bit more expensive than just going ahead and buying a super cheap Elven Guardian, High Guardian, sorry. And, you know, with him you can get it for, like I said, 1 Gjallarhorn fully evolved, even fully leveled up, you know, very cheap. So you can teach that very quickly, whereas getting Shield and Dagger will be a little more expensive, maybe take a little longer time to find something cheap, but whatever. As for the other 3 skills, while Massive Assault, which it currently has, it's the ability that comes with it, is good, it only wipes out 1 guy. So you might want to replace that possibly with another attack-based thing like Berserk. You might want to do, there is Barrage, but I believe that to learn Barrage you have to kind of give up some Gjallarhorns here. Yes, indoor is definitely expensive, so barrage is out of the question. But there's also Slashing Blade, and that's actually currently not that expensive to get because Nuadha, the Shining Blade, has actually gone down in price recently by a lot. Not exactly sure why. And then, of course, there's the Invitation guy. If you can get some invites, you can get this guy very easily. So, yeah, he also has Slashing Blade, so you can teach that. Slashing Blade basically hits everybody in a line, so it's pretty nice. So then, of course, you probably want to save that last third slot for a boost, some kind of buff. Strength of Blades is great. Griffin Mount 2 is really easy to get. You can usually get a very low evolution of him for about 10 Gjallarhorns, and it's an amazing ability because it boosts so much, and you'll definitely see your attacks doing a lot more damage. Plus, it boosts the guys that are right next to you, so if you put 2 high attack guys right next to your Black Brute, you'll be doing a mass amount of damage total. So, now I have a question from Daniela Bagooks. At least I think that's how you say it. And they ask a very simple question. How do you get a good familiar? Well, of course, that's not as easy as it sounds, although it can be easy in a few instances. Personally, the best way how to get any good familiar is by checking out the bazaar. Every day, the bazaar gets reset at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're willing to stay up that late, that is when the bazaar is most active. Believe it or not, some people are willing to stay up that late, which is also midnight on the West Coast. But some people stay up that late just to put all their stuff up so they can fall asleep and in the morning hopefully have a few deals finished and, they can be happy, check their wagon. So if you actually do stay awake until that time of night, sometimes you'll be able to see the most incredible deals. People will put their stuff up, sometimes a fully evolved familiar for only 1 Gjallarhorn, which really isn't that hard to get. You can sometimes sell even a poor quality rare for 1 Gjallarhorn, and then if you can buy a fully evolved one, that's pretty nice. That's a great improvement. Also, of course, coins. You get copper coins and silver coins just from going through a zone. Sometimes you'll pick up a copper coin along the way from a regular chest. And also, if you get 3 victories in PvP in a row, you get 2 copper coins. So, of course, always use your coins. I personally like saving a large amount and then using it all at once because there's, of course, a higher chance that you'll get a rare among 50 than, if you use them one at a time. It'll be a little more disappointing that way. So, that's pretty much how you get a good familiar. And of course, with the bazaar, it's crazy because you could easily trade up, trade down, however you want. Let's say that, you start out with, let's say something really basic. I always just go to Nunu because that's like the first one thing that comes off my head. But okay, let's say you have a Nunu Hill Giant. So you don't really know what to do with him. Okay, well, if you put him up for Bazaar, let's say you put him up for Medusa 2. Nunu goes for 1 Gjallarhorn. Medusa 2 goes for about 2 or 3. So then you could trade that Medusa 2 possibly for a plain old Medusa, because usually the second version can be traded for the first version, and the first version can be traded for the second version. Which is kind of strange because the first version is almost always worth more. So Medusa is worth around 3, 4, or 5 Gjallarhorns. You instantly, just through 2 trades, have made about 4 Gjallarhorns. So you could do things like that. Also, sometimes if you get to something like Medusa, let's say you did try to trade for Nuadha, you'd probably want to go for the second because that's more likely. But who knows, you might even be able to do that, or definitely wouldn't be able to do it for a DeNA. But you kind of have to play around with it, look at the current prices. You kind of have to be on top of that. It's just like playing the stock market, pretty much. But, of course, sometimes you can just go on the bazaar and find some really good deals and just go for it before anyone else does. So, anyway. I have another question from Lord Shiv. He asks, can you go deeper into the strategy for different events? For example, the new World Battle Coliseum, Raid Boss, etc. Well, got some great news. I'm currently working on the new WBC strategy guide, and that'll be out pretty soon. I'm going pretty in-depth, explaining absolutely everything. As for a raid boss guide, I do have a raid boss guide up at the moment, but I know it's not exactly up to par. It was kind of done on the fly, very loosely done. I will be redoing it in the future with a script, so it's a lot more organized and makes a lot more sense. Goes a little further deeper into the strategy of it all. So keep an eye out for that, but definitely the WBC one is coming out within the next week, guaranteed. So finally, I have one final question for Blood Brothers. And this person was anonymous. They said, I made a new Blood Brothers account starting with the Grey Mage character, because in my primary account, I have first turn killed a lot of times by some Grey Mage purple knife with Torrent of Flame. Should it be worth it to start again? I mean, the character in my main account is the Black Brute. His stats are low, he's slow, and that is really unbalanced. I could transfer my familiars, but what I'm sad about is that I'm at level 157. Well, I can see your issue. Unfortunately, the Black Brute at this time has the lowest stats of all warlords, and that's very disappointing because before he was a really good warlord before add skill was added to it. But unfortunately, he's not exactly up to par with other warlords at this time. It might be worth it to start it out like a whole new account, but I mean, if you are level 157, you could just play around with the add skills, see if you get something that actually works very well. Maybe add something else into your group, like maybe a griffin to further boost your Black Brute's attack. Kind of stumbling over my words right now, sorry about that. But I totally know what you mean by the Grey Mage and Purple Knife doing massive amounts of damage with Torrent of Flame. Like I said, I got killed before by Torrent of Flame, 15k to everybody, extremely painful. I totally know the pain you're in. But then again, sometimes you just get into a PvP situation like that. Making a new account probably will not stop that from happening, although you know, you could have a chance to do crazy damage like that too. The Grey Mage is very versatile, so if you were to make a new account and go with the Grey Mage, he's, well, good character. He can definitely use Torrent of Flame, Flash of Rage. There is a Wisdom boost buff up there that you could use to further boost your damage output. So, I mean, I guess it's really up to you whether or not you're that annoyed with your Black Brute account to actually start over. But from experience and seeing other people use the Grey Mage, it's definitely a good choice. So anyway, that's about it with question and answers. If anyone has a question that they want me to answer or has further questions, please submit your question through the link in the video description. As much as I would love to actually answer questions that are in the comments section of the video, I can't most of the time because I get so many comments that are just, you know, use my code and whatnot, that it's really hard to filter through them all. And I usually don't really have a chance to answer questions except for the weekend, so by then I have a bunch of comments piled up and really don't feel like sifting through them. So make sure you check out the link in the description. That's the #1 way how to get to me and for me to see your question. Anyway, until next time, good luck everybody.